And I believe when I stopped the broadcast the other night is when Brenda finally had to stop working with me. She's been working with me for about 6 months, meeting just once a week. And during that time, we had already interpreted about 300 of the quatrains of the prophecy. At the height of my work with her, I would open the book, I would read the prophecy, check it off, and then she would give me the answer immediately. I didn't have to repeat it. I didn't have to ask any more questions. I would just move on to the next one and read it and check it off. Didn't matter where I started because I didn't know what I was doing anyway. Then I found out it didn't matter because they're not in any kind of order. But I would read them and move on to the next one. And at the height of my work with her, we were interpreting 30 quatrains in an hour. That is absolutely impossible for the human mind to think that fast, especially on puzzles as complicated as this. We were definitely communicating directly with him. He was giving us the answers because he is the one who wrote the book. So this was going along very well, working with her, and I was getting a great deal of information, and we were able to put all this together. It was only later that I had to use the computer. There's thousands and thousands of hours on tape that had to be transcribed. I had to do all of that and then put it all together later. But then it came to a point where Brenda was just burned out, I think, more than anything. But she had to drop out of college as a music student and take a job because she needed money. The only job she could get was working at night in the chicken factory where we live. Over here is the Tyson territory, and they have the chicken houses at the chicken plant. And it's not a very good job because you're handling the frozen chickens. They go down the assembly lines to be cut up and all of this. And here she was a musician, and she was so concerned about her hands working in the ice and with these cold chickens. And it was very hard work. So I would go to her house expecting to work with her, and she would come home at night, and I'd be there waiting, and she said, all I want to do is to fall into bed. I don't even want to eat anything. That I'm totally exhausted. I hate this job. And she said, I don't think I'll ever be able to do this again because all she could think of was her work and trying to rest. So that meant that my work with her was finished. And I didn't like it to be that way because there were still many of the quatrains that had not been completed. And those of you that know me know that I don't leave anything unfinished. I like to complete a job, especially an assignment, and I wanted to complete this. I wanted to do all of them. And up to that point, I'd only done about 300. All of this went into the volume 1 of the Conversations with Nostradamus series. Is my work with Brenda. Many of those quatrains have now come true all over the world, all of the events, and it's quite amazing that people have told me some of the ones that have come true, they said was the most accurate predictions ever that they've ever heard anywhere. No one could doubt that these were accurate predictions that did come true. Now, the main reason for Nostradamus making this contact in the first place was that he wanted us to change the future. He said, if I tell you the most horrible things you can do to yourself, will you do something to stop it? Because he said, the future is not set in stone. It is not just one future that's unchangeable. The future is many probabilities and possibilities, and these all branch off in many different directions. So if you knew which one of these paths or direction you were headed down, you could change the direction and go in a different direction. You could lessen the event. If you couldn't stop it, you could at least lessen the effects of the event if you knew which way you were going. That man doesn't know the power of their own mind. And if you focused on the opposite of what he saw, then you could make that your reality. Because everything we have in our life, we create and we put there. So if we knew what was going to happen, we could change it by focusing on the opposite and creating that reality. But he said, people don't know the power of their own mind. And if one man's mind is that powerful that they can change the events of the future, imagine the power of Ruth's mind. You get several people in groups focusing on the same thing. The power is not only multiplied, it is squared. And the power is tremendous. And that's one of the things he wanted me to do through the books and through the lectures, because I've now been lecturing on this since about 1991, about 15 years, all over the world. He wanted me to tell people they have the power to change the future. And I tell people when I'm meeting in different lectures in different parts of the world, if you have meditation groups, if you have prayer groups, any kind of a group that meets regularly, if you can only take 5 minutes out of that meeting to focus on peace and harmony, we can create that reality. And I thought it was helping because a lot of the events that he thought was going to happen by the end of the 90s. And they seem to have been put off by a few years at least. And they didn't really begin to happen until like the year 2001, 2002. So we were able to forestall it for a few years. But I tell people when they read the book, don't pay any attention to the dates. Dates are the hardest thing for any psychic anywhere to predict. They will often see the event, but finding the correct date is almost impossible. Nostradamus even said that when he saw an event, imagine him looking into the future. Everything he saw was futuristic, had no relation to his time period whatsoever. So everything he saw was totally out of context of his own life. How was he going to know when it was going to occur? How was he going to know how it related to our world today? He said the only way he could really tell a time of an event was if he, in this vision, he could see a portion of the sky. If he could make out constellations and star placements by seeing a portion of the sky, then he might be able to come up with some kind of a date. That's the only way he could do it. And you can see why, because even psychics today, they'll see a scene, they try to warn people, but how do they know when it is going to happen? Unless there is something in the scene to tell them roughly when it will be. So some of the dating in the book is not correct, but the events have definitely been happening. So, shouldn't pay too much attention to the dates. All we know is that right now we are living in what he calls the time of trouble. This right now is the time of trouble. And we have to move through the time of trouble, get through all these wars and all of the awful events we saw before we can move into the time of the great genius. The time of the great genius will be totally opposite and totally wonderful. Because he said the pendulum cannot swing all the way to the very evil, the bad, and stay there. It must swing back to balance. And when it swings back, it will come into the time of the great genius. And during the time of the great genius, we will be living in space, have space stations, traveling in space. The great genius will be a miraculous inventor who will invent many wondrous things for the world. Very good, powerful things. And we will go into the 1,000 years of peace. We will be traveling in space, living in space. There will be a source of power that will be non-polluting, and it will be placed on a space station, and it will be beam down at the entire Earth, and it will be free energy that will power the entire Earth and will not be polluted. This is one of the things he saw. He also saw the human body being perfected to the point that it would never die. That science would have reached the point where they could duplicate organs and parts of the body to where, and we are on the threshold of that right now, but he would get to that point to where the human body would never die. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. In some of my lectures, it's been debated back and forth, who's to say. But science is on that threshold right now. And when we were doing this in the late 80s, I didn't know anything about the inventions they're coming up with now, especially when they're moving into nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is going to be the science of the future, where they will be able to duplicate parts of the body by duplicating the DNA and having computers read this and reproduce organs and body parts that can be used for the person. We are on the threshold of something very exciting that's going to be happening. This is ushering in the 1,000 years of peace. It's also bringing in the new world that will be totally different as the world shifts its vibrations and moves into another dimension. Those are things I'll be talking about in the future that are out of the convoluted universe book theory. But these were things he was telling us, if we can just get through this time right now. The Earth is a living being. And as a living being, it has karma. And it's trying to get rid of all the karma that it has right now before it moves into a totally new world. Like reincarnation, it's going to reincarnate into a totally beautiful new world. The first it has to get rid of all the old karma as the countries work out their karma with between themselves, and this is what's causing a lot of the wars and a lot of the natural disasters. But these are all things that he told us about, and a lot of them were not pleasant. I had to come to terms within my own self as to what I wanted to know. Do I really want to know these things? And it was very difficult until I could come to terms within myself to say, it doesn't matter, this is something I have to work with. Because you could step off of the curb tomorrow and be hit by a car, that would be the end of your world as you know it. The people who were at Hiroshima didn't know what was going to happen to them either. On that next day, they woke up and their entire world was taken away. So we never know from one day to the next what we're going to be, what we're going to be doing. All we can live in is the now and do the very best we can with our life now. So that's what I found out. I was given this information for a reason. I would have to pass it on to the world and do the very best that I could. That's what I tried to do. But at that time, when Brenda got to where she couldn't work anymore, right before that time, Nostradamus had told me, you're going to need a drawer of horoscopes because we're getting into astrological dating. And he knew that neither I nor Brenda knew anything about astrology. So he said, don't worry, you will meet someone, you will find the person you need who will help you with the astrological dating. You will find your drawer of horoscopes, as he called it. So I couldn't figure out how in Arkansas are we going to meet somebody who would be able to help with this. You know, Arkansas is like the last place you're going to be able to find something like this. So a few weeks after that, I was at a